Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm Julian here with my co-host B, and today we're going to talk about some double standards. So it might get a little juicy. Another exciting topic. I'm excited to talk as always, and as usual, we'll dive right into it. So double standards is pretty much, just typically within. I mean, double standards I think can be applied to anything, but typically within like the genders, right? Something females experience that males don't, or males experience that females don't. That's what I think of when I think double standards. Do you have any, other prominent field you see double standards, or I think typically between genders? What do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's my when you first say that word, that's like the first thing that I think of. But as I
Yeah.
was thinking about it, I think there's a lot of double standards and just in society in general, and as in society within the political side, we'll just say, there's a lot of double
Yes.
standards in politics. And I
That's a
just
good one.
kind of related to the male versus female double standards too, like the work culture. I think there's a lot of double standards. Rich and the poor, there's double standards. Yeah, it's like a lot in societal behavior.
That's a good
I
one.
think there's a lot of double standard that I was kind of thinking about.
That's good. I didn't think about rich versus poor. I thought about politics, and again, the first thing that comes to my head is gender. Whether it's gender in the work, the household relationship, the whatever, all under the societal umbrella. But rich and poor is good. That might. I'm interested to see what you've heard in that realm. So with that, I want to hear what's the most prominent or like the biggest double standard, or maybe if you even have a favorite one that you always hear talked about, or the juiciest, double standard that you've heard of. And I'm trying to think of mine too, just to kind of kick it off, because there's so many. And again, I'm what you got?
I got
You got
one that
one?
I do want to say. I was thinking about this one. I think,
Okay,
and
well, send it.
this is hard for me, right? Because I'm married and I haven't been in the dating scene in 5 years now. And so everything that I'm about to talk about is like third party stories or just from the internet.
Sure.
But I think it's it's everywhere. So I think it's true or somewhat
Probably
true,
valid.
right?
Yeah.
So what I want to say is usually a good number of people, maybe it's not a large percentage, but I'll just leave it at a large number of people, especially females, kind of talk really bad about masculinity. And it goes down the line of like, oh, toxic masculinity, like this guy's toxic, blah, 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 blah. Right? So they say that while expecting men to lead in like dating scene, like, hey, like I want to be treated as a princess, like I want you to figure everything out, and on the first day you better be paying. I'm like, well, if you don't like masculinity and if you claim yourself as like an independent woman, then why does the men have to lead and have to pay for things like that? Just like kind of picking and choosing the things that they like about masculinity and things that they don't like about masculinity. So I think that's double standard there that I thought was kind of funny.
That's a good one. I'm gonna piggyback off that.
Okay.
Because that is I think that's a perfect like kickstart, the masculinity topic. And I think there's a difference between hyper masculinity and toxic masculinity that I'm pretty sure we addressed in one other podcast that we can get into. But the whole masculinity piece, well, I guess it's kind of different. So I'm thinking of misogyny, where it's like often guys are viewed as misogynistic, which I wanted to look it up just so I got an accurate definition. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's just the preference of like men over women. Matter of fact, I'm not even gonna just type it in real quick. But I promise I'm gonna make a point with this. Misogyny definition typed in Google. It just says Okay, the dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women, right? So like the preferential treatment, if you will, of men.
Okay.
But you know what's interesting about misogyny, right? I'm sure you've heard of men being misogynistic or, misogyny. What is the equivalent term for women? Like what's the opposite of misogyny?
Can you say misogyny like in the everyday term? Like what is that? What is it? Explain
Uh
to me like everyday term.
the
So
the preferential treatment of men. So like when people like a prejudice against women, that's like misogynistic.
okay, so so you're saying if a man is misogynistic, then they just
Yes.
don't like female. They view females as less. Is that something along the lines?
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of, yes. Yes,
And
actually.
in that case, the woman's term would be independent women because they are saying that they are implying that they don't need men, which is devaluing the existence of men.
Okay, I was confused. I see where you're taking it now. I think independent woman though has I think a slightly different connotation where it's like I'm strong on my own, but not necessarily excluding men. They often go hand in hand. Like because I'm good on my own, I don't need men. But you can be independent and vote and both appreciate and accept men. Whereas misogyny is like I'm degrading the other side. I'm degrading women. Independent woman doesn't degrade man. It just boosts self as a woman. So, and what I'm getting at is I've heard the term misogynistic for years now, a lot of time.
Mm.
You know what the term for women is, or the closest thing? I literally typed in Google, what is the opposite of misogyny? The word is phylogeny or a phylogynist. Have you
Oh,
ever heard that term?
I never heard that word.
I've never heard that term once in my life, which kind of goes to show that men always get attacked for the degradation of women and the preferential treatment of men like against women, but it's never highlighted if women advocate for women or, degrade men, that's never highlighted. Hence me never even hearing the term phylogeny, vice
Mhm.
misogyny. So I was like, that I think is interesting. And I think it's kind of intertwined in the masculinity conversation because I think masculinity or misogyny, I'm using them kind of interchangeable. They're really not, but I'm lumping them in the same umbrella. I think it has like a negative stigma already just for like being associated with man,
Mhm.
which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And that therein lies that double standard, like just by the association of man or like anything that equates man being powerful or boosting, I don't know, putting men on a pedestal or men doing good, that comes with the opposite, which is like, oh, because man's doing good, like women's doing bad. Like man good, women bad. Oh, it could just be man good, women also good, but it's like assume that man good, women bad. It's like, but when it's women good, it's just women good. There's no like man bad. So I was like, I think that's a double standard that I thought, I don't know, that stuck out to me. That I
I
think
see
is
that. And then you might be better with your vocab and the language, but
yeah.
that's what I kind of meant with the toxic
Mm-hmm.
masculinity part. Like they just lump masculinity that's not toxic into this category of toxic. It's not, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I was kind of trying
Correct.
to get at. And I do want to kind of bring in a biblical reference if that's okay.
Mm.
Not too much, just a
Oh
little
yeah.
blip in there.
No, no, no. It's a good
But
perspective.
it's interesting because in the Old Testament, a man was created, right? And then from a man's body, a woman was created, and the term helper, I don't know the original Hebrew word that was used, but its literal translation in today's language is a helper. So therefore, implying that woman is a helper to the man. So when you hear that, like some people, like without understanding the context, like they don't like that term. Like I'm not a man's
Sure.
helper, right? Like it's like helper is looked out as like a degrading term almost.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what's really interesting though? that word is used many times in the Old Testament, and it has been used multiple times to describe women, but majority of the time, do you know what the word is used to describe?
No, what?
Is to reference God. God is a
God as a
helper
helper?
to the man. And if you asked me, now the word helper doesn't seem so bad, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
divine being. Like it just like, hey, you are helping a man. That doesn't necessarily mean that men can't be helpers to women either, because I definitely help my wife with a lot of stuff. So I'm a helper to her. Same thing as like she's a helper to me. Right. So I thought that was like a very interesting
Wow.
line that the Old Testament draws between the connection, like relationship between women and man. So I don't want to get too religious because I'm still trying to explore my
That's good.
spirituality, religious
Yeah.
stuff, but I just want to throw that in there.
Dude, that's really good. And I think I'm glad you kind of took it back. I mean, just by talking about the Bible, that implies historical context. So I'm glad you kind of took it back, because I think a lot of historical gender roles can actually inform probably a lot of what we're about to talk about, because I think a lot of these double standards, at least the gender related ones, right, or the ones that exist within relationships. Just kind of thinking about this topic before we got on the mic, I was like, I think some of it is tied back to traditional, traditional views of man and woman. And I'll attempt to elaborate on what you were just talking about. And we've talked many times before, traditional roles, right? Or if we were to associate words with genders, when we think nurturers or even emotional or vulnerability, we typically associate those with females. I think everyone would agree on that. That's become a societal thing. Whether society has ingrained that in us, I think we all can agree on that. But the double standard comes into play. And I guess in this episode, we're rebelling against, what some of these double standards set, that they're these polarizing things. It's one for this and this for the other, where it could just be even across the playing field. So keeping that in mind, right, being this nurturing person or emotional, when a woman is nurturing or vulnerable or even empathetic, showing emotions, that is a desirable trait. It's virtuous. It's a good thing. But when we see those same things in man, it is now a symbol of weakness. And when I try to, and maybe you can help me with this, or, I'd like to hear your opinions on these things. When I try to think about why is that? I mean, I know like society has perpetuated that, but like really going back, like where does that come from? I think it's because, again, of the traditional, like women were domestic, uh, they handled the domestic, pieces of household. They were in the house. They were taking care of the kids. And so they were nurturing, and they were probably, to use a word, like helping the man when he gets home. There's probably some emotional support there, all of those things. Whereas the man was just kind of transactional, providing like protection, food, and like reproduction purposes. Um, and I think over time, what has evolved from that is like, hey, a man doesn't need to be emotional. A man doesn't need to be vulnerable. A man doesn't need to nurture, because that wasn't the traditional thing. And, what do you think about that? Why? I mean, I think that's how we got here, but I think the deeper question is like, do I agree with that? Which I don't think. I think people should be judged evenly on if you're emotional, or if you're vulnerable, or if you're a nurturer. But I definitely think that's a double standard.
That is a double standard. And I understand why through biology, why those traits are just
Right.
looked unfavorably when it's applied to the man versus the woman. But at the same time, like, I don't know, like, I feel like now in today's day and age, I feel like you can be more open about it. Does that, right?
Mhm.
Would you agree with
Yeah.
that? Like, verse,
Certainly more
like,
than historically. Yes.
yeah, like, verse, like, 100 years ago, I feel
Yeah.
like, for example, if you were, like, feminine as a guy, like, you probably got I don't know, beat up or made fun of or whatever. I'm not sure. I mean, it might still happen today. I'm not exactly sure. But I would imagine that's like less of what's happening compared to relative to 100 years ago. So it is a double standard that I feel like it might be shifting as the years go by. I feel like
So you say we're moving in a positive direction?
I would say whether it's positive or negative, I don't know. We're moving towards a world where we're more accepting of different
Got you.
people's different feelings, whether that's good or
Okay,
bad.
well said. Okay. And it's interesting what you said. Oh, you were like, 100 years ago, if you were more feminine, you would have probably got physically caught physical reprimand, whatever.
Yeah,
But, in another episode, we talked like even what some things that are societally feminine, those are even changing. So, whereas,
yeah,
I forget what episode it was, but we were talking about like if you used to wear a skirt at one point, that was for maybe it was for a ritual or it was a symbol of status or whatever. But like now, if you wear a skirt, it's like,
a feminine
associated
thing.
with women.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a feminine thing. Yeah. So all these things that are changing are interesting, but I agree with you. I think we are moving in a direction where it's more acceptable across both, all genders, to be those certain character traits. But even still, there is some level of like scrutiny against man who exhibits certain traits, and it's just like, why in my head,
hmm
you know? Um,
and
another.
that is kind of weird.
Go
That
ahead.
is a little bit one more thing on that. That is kind of weird
No,
because like
no.
I feel like I don't know what the exact term is like as you if you show those traits as like an acquaintance. Am I saying that word correct?
Acquaintance. Yeah.
Acquaintance. Um,
Yes.
or friend level, it may be looked up as bad. But I feel like when you get to know someone intimately, like a romantic relationship or like just a much, like a couple layers deep of a friendship, like it's kind of more appreciated in a sense. So on the surface, it might look bad, but then like as you kind of dig in, you're like, okay, like this actually might not be like a bad thing.
That's interesting to me because if it's more valued in the deeper friendships, it's like, wouldn't you want that on the surface? Like, i- instead of like cutting through the BS to be accepting of the deeper levels of people, why don't we just accept it outright? Because we know once you get there, it's, I don't
I
want to say
don't.
better, but accept it. It's just, yes. And that's why it's a double standard. It like, I don't want to say defies logic. That's a strong term, but I'm struggling to figure out why these different things don't equate. So keeping it in the realm of gender, I'll I'll start looking at the body, right? And a thing I heard that I thought was interesting. I think there's multiple double standards when we talk about like
Yeah.
physical looks or composition. But one I thought was interesting was, if a woman, and I'm also not single, but I don't know why I feel like I've been hearing this narrative or this conversation a lot recently, just on social media or whatever. If a women like, hey, I want a guy that's over 6 feet, looks good, in shape, abs or whatever, blue eyes, just a slew of physical traits, and nobody really bats an eye. It's like, I've heard snippets of pieces or podcasts or some women or men saying like, hey, you guys realize that's like less than 2%. Like that is a very small majority. What you're naming that is everybody's perfect guy. That's like this guy you guys are describing doesn't really exist, but they don't really get bashed for it. And in the clip that I heard, there was a woman talking about this. She said when guys list their physical preferences, which there's nothing wrong with your preference is your preference. Nobody can change that. Nobody should judge that. That's what you want. That's what you want. I'm just stating that statistically, that man doesn't exist too much. But if a guy is like, hey, I want a tall, blonde, big chest, it's like, oh, like you're
Yeah.
sexualizing. Red flags go off. It's like, hey, if that's your preference, that's your preference, and we should keep it that way both sides. But for guys, it's sexualizing, but for women, it's just like, good luck. But it's not. You know what I mean? It just doesn't read the same. Like
I think the biggest double standard out of everything that we mentioned from this category is the characteristics that you cannot change. I guess you can with today's science, but
Oh yeah.
like I feel like there's a lot more things that person can control that the man likes. Like a personality stuff, like I feel like you can control that to an extent, right? And also with a body weight is a big one. Like you can for there might be certain rare cases, but for majority of regular healthy people, you can control your weight, right?
Mhm.
Like you
You absolutely
cannot
can.
deny that.
Anybody can.
But then double standard comes in because they judge a big thing that girls or females like in a man is their height. And my wife had the same preference. Like she was like, yeah, I wouldn't have dated you if you were 5, whatever, you know? And that is definitely interesting because, it's their right to pick and choose who they want to date. But the the attacks that we get from saying, "Hey, we rather have a normal weight person or a little bit on the skinnier side, a little bit of chubby is okay," versus, if we were like, "Oh, I don't like fat girls." I feel like the guy would get like canceled online. Whereas the same girl
Yeah.
on the other side is like, "Yeah, I want someone that's 6'8", blah 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 blah." It's like, dude, it's not even like you mentioned 2%, but like some of the figures that they throw out where it's like 0.000 something percent.
For sure.
It,
For
it's
sure. I was
it's
being generous. Yeah.
almost delusional. Actually, it's not yet. So I mean, you can take that chance, but I would think that you you getting with a guy or a girl, it works in both scenarios that you are, okay with, that you bond like emotionally and you guys work through that relationship. I think that's like a much better outcome than like going for everything on based on looks and first impressions. I just feel like I have a guess that relationship is not going to last.
Yeah, I think you got some experience, like life wisdom to back that guess, but I would agree with you. And on that, playing back in the misogyny piece, when guys do verbally state their preference, it's looked at as misogynistic. It's degrading women again, or sexualizing them. And I think there's a difference. I think that's being confused with, like you said, if you're talking down on a body type, right? Like you're online saying mean, nasty things against whatever the body type is, that's one thing. But to say my name is Julian and I like X, Y, and Z, that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not
Yeah.
putting down anybody. I'm just saying what I like. I could like bigger people. I could say, hey, I want a woman that's over 300 pounds. Pure. If you're under that, I don't want you. There's nothing wrong with that statement. Like you can't tell me what I like as long as it's not negatively affecting like somebody else's life. And I guess that kind of goes into the body positive movement, which I've heard that phrase thrown around a lot. And another double standard within this movement with women, if you are of a body type that's maybe slightly less desirable, people try to show love, especially women for other women, right? Embrace yourself, self-love, like love the skin you're in, all that good stuff. Which also agree, like I'm an advocate of positive mindset regardless. So yeah, if you're of a non-desirable body type, I think you should be confident in. I mean, you can also try to work to change that if that's what you want. Like, don't be like, oh, I wish I was this and do nothing about it. Like, if you wish you were skinnier, I mean, like you said, you can't do anything about height. But if you wish you were skinnier, like, do something about it. But also, like, you still be confident, still do you. Like, you're still a valued person. You know what I mean? But if a guy has a less desirable body, I feel like it's like, hey, you need to do something about that. Whip yourself into shape. Like, get in the gym. Like, do better. My thing again, just come with energy, the same energy for both sides. That's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That that's my piece, dude. It's like, and again, this goes for probably so many things, but
Can we
I think the body, is one we just see. I don't know. I see it just, it's in, like, I see it a lot. Go ahead. What you about to say?
I'll just say my piece because I want to be honest, and we can talk about it. Maybe I can cut it out if it's too much. You gotta be the judge of that. But
Okay.
this is my honest thoughts, and I do not want to hold it
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
On the body positive movement, I don't like it personally, and here's why.
Let's hear
Because
it.
I'm in the mindset of whatever it is, I find someone attractive, but that doesn't really matter. I think it's better overall as a society if people are striving to be a better version of themselves. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
And part of that, part of being the best version or getting to a better version, like looks is completely like, I mean, I think looks is part of the equation, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try to make a bigger point over the looks.
I think I know where you're going. Yep.
But like being obese is unhealthy for you. Like I'm not like it's
Yes.
not good for your body. So sure, I'm not saying you are less of a person because you're fat. I'm not saying that. And it's tough in today's world where food is so freaking abundant. You can go to every I can throw a baseball from restaurant to restaurant, right? Like we're not running out of food. Therefore, like we have a lot of access to food. And being able to understand that, hey, maybe I am a little bit overweight, I should not be eating as much, and trying to work yourself into being, I guess I'll say that word, like being skinnier, I guess, or being more fit. And I think that is a positive thing. And I just don't understand the idea that we're like, okay, this is what it is. I'm okay with it. I never really thought that. Like, I didn't know a lot of stuff. And so I tried to read books to learn more stuff. But that's what you're exactly doing by working out in the gym. Or you don't even have to go to the gym, or like watching your diet. Like I am trying to improve myself mentally, and on the exact same side, someone I when I go to the gym or try to work on my diet, like I am trying to improve myself physically. And I just don't understand the society that we live in. We're like, oh, that's okay and this is okay. I'm like, it's okay, but like you're like justifying something that you don't want to work towards personally. Was that too much?
Yes. No, that I don't think that was too much, and that brings a lot of good conversation. Some of which will be on this topic, and we'll stray a little bit, but I think so. Knowing you, this is funny because I think this goes into the, I don't know, the utilitarian mindset where it's like just maximize everything for optimal society. Which, yes, I don't think there's anything objectively wrong. Like if everybody was like, the question is, right, why isn't everybody striving for peak everything, mental health, physical health? And this is where I struggle because in theory, right, like, yeah, why aren't everybody? But there's just so many natural and unnatural variables. The unnatural ones being like the government, um, um, not propaganda, but
It definitely is propaganda.
yeah, pushing narratives. Like you said, like why aren't we eating less and or better? Conversely, which I'm a big proponent of, like take your own, like you're the author of your own story, right? Like we control ourselves, but I will at least acknowledge why is food so abundant? Why is so much unhealthy food abundant? Because you look at all these other countries and stuff, America does a lot of things that are far more unhealthy than other countries. For instance, Japan, portion sizes are just smaller. And not even that, like food is healthier, but like that's one little tweak we could do on a of shift in the paradigm, like on the, I don't know, government or uh not big pharma, but like the big food level to
Mhm.
help society reach a better society, and they just don't. It's just like capitalism takes over or want to monetize everything, maximize profits. So that's a kind of a tangent, but it just, I think on the individual level and the governing levels, we would have to agree to like, hey, let's make ourselves better, and then once we all reach that agreement, then like sure, maybe we can make change. But I mean, I hear you though for the body thing, and I think there, you said like, why aren't we trying to be more fit? I also think that's subjective. There, somebody could look at a body type and be like, "Hey, you're overweight," and there probably is a statistical point, like X percentage of body fat is deemed overweight.
But it's not
I
about,
don't
I'm
know
not
it.
talking about the other person. I'm talking about that person only. It's the fact of not being skinnier or fat. It's the
Mhm.
fact matter of bettering yourself or choosing not to better yourself. And I just think like you just don't grow as a person if you don't strive to keep trying to become a better person.
Got you.
In one of those things happen to be like physical.
Okay. So on that, and this might be a stretch, but in bettering yourself, right? Because there's multiple fields we can better yourself. It's, I think, a question, or I'm trying to connect it back to the double standards. It's like, what is more important in bettering yourself? Is it like fitness, money, or appearance, status? And the reason I'm saying this is because I think now we're seeing and this is also, again, I guess, kind of society push it one way, where people are taking the body image, and there's like an OnlyFans boom right now. I guess I don't know if you've been hearing this, but like there's a alarming growth in the numbers of millionaires coming from OnlyFans that are just profiting off their bodies. But
Mhm.
again, it's like, are we prioritizing the mind, or are we prioritizing these other things? But it's just like, I mean, it's largely women are seeing an opportunity to take advantage of their body, which the double standard does not exist for men. Like, I think we don't see or hear about men on OnlyFans making millions of dollars, and there's probably a reason why, because of some standards, some shift in standards. But maybe they're trying to better themselves in this one category, and it's just at at the risk of, not the risk, but I don't know, by essentially like selling their bodies. And then you go to question, is that right? I don't know. Is it morally right, or is it w- whatever right? But they're like, oh, but they're making money, and this money could be, I don't know, injected back into the market or society. And so I feel like for every one motive or one thing in one category, it's like something else for another. Again, this is not me making an excuse for anybody. I definitely think somebody can like sit back and we can all self-evaluate and how we get better in different categories and do it fair and do it morally and do it all these things. Really just providing more conversation. But in the context of double standards, I do think it's interesting how there's a boom literally in women who have this societally desirable body type making money for off of what, I don't know what skill is being
And
used
desire,
to,
I guess, right? Just
yeah. Uh, but I mean, I don't want to neglect your point though. I appreciate you like calling out like for what it is to not to have, I don't want to say excuses being made on anyone's behalf. I guess I'm just saying I think there's I want to say a middle ground where you could not be, because not everybody that's not healthy. Again, I don't want to just say overweight is like obese. There's some people that are in between, or the body types are in between. They're not really skinny, but they're not really obese either. And then like for those people, it's a maintainable body that they can live a pretty healthy life. You know what I mean? Um,
well, like I said, I think you might be just missing my point. It's not about the body type. It's about
mhm.
bettering yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
So, sure, with all body types, you can be bettering yourself by continually going to
hmm
the gym, regardless of
Right.
weight.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
But I
Do
just
you think
don't
there's a double standard within bettering yourself? Like, do you think one gender is pushed to better themselves more than the other?
uh it might be biased, but I would think the men have higher pressure.
hmm
Oh man. Actually, I might have to give it to the women here. I think women
Really?
have a higher
That's good.
pressure to better themselves in today's society
Mm,
because societal narratives are pushing things that like are just unnatural. Like like as a female, I would think, because like my wife experienced it, and then obviously like I don't have to be a female to understand what females go through on some scale, right? I don't understand everything, but from what I see, I'm not stupid. I see things, right? But for example, like after high school for a female, they're like, hey, what kind of job you're gonna work? What kind of career field do you want to go into? Are you gonna go to college? Are you gonna do this? And let's say you go to the college route. Okay, now you're expected to excel in academics. Now you're gonna go find yourself a job after, and you're expected to be a mother because you're a female and you want to be a mother. You can only have a female as a mother, right? So it like you have like a more of a everything that men have pressure wise, not responsibility wise, but pressure wise, they have to excel up to the men's level in terms of finding a good job, like academically excelling. But on top of that, you have things that just men cannot do, like give birth, and they want to, really look good in terms of makeup, and obviously men want to look good too. But the time that men, if we both got up at the same time, men would just get ready quicker, and they would look, their best. Vice, females, it would take them longer to get ready. You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah. So that's interesting because this case almost is it the same standard? Everything else double standard. We've been talking about different standards, but almost what you articulated was like the same standard. Women are being pressured to the same standard as men, but because they're women, they have additional duties, responsibilities. I don't know, whatever you want to call having a child along the way. That this one, it sounds like you're arguing that there should be a double standard, but there's not, or I could be off based on that.
Okay, I see how you put it, and yes, I guess I would agree with that statement because there's a double standard in this case, because there is double standard because there's physical differences that interfere in the way of trying to achieve the standard level. So there should be quote unquote double standard. It's just a different standard.
Right. This one's like inverted. Yeah, no, that's good.
But I do want to clarify the things that I think the things that we are trying to address and have more of an issue with is the double standards that could be applied to have the same standard. But then they don't.
Yeah, that's a good point of clarity. Before I want to bring up, actually, I could bring up a couple more within the confines of men and women, and because I want to hear what you have to say on the the rich and the poor, or just the difference in social classes, and then like there's some political ones too. But again, just another one that I hear that I personally think is pretty prevalent is the promiscuity, or how sexually active someone is, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman. And I guess I'll just ask you just to paint the picture. If you hear that if a woman is excessively, I don't want to say excess because like who deems what's excess, is extremely sexually active, is that usually good, bad, or indifferent? Like what are your thoughts on that? Or what do you think society's thoughts on when a woman being extremely sexually active? And this isn't with one partner. I'll even say like with multiple partners.
Yeah, myself, and I think what the nation or society as a whole thinks is that it is less the more number or more sexually active the woman is, less desirable they become.
I think I would probably agree that is probably the narrative. And again, this isn't just sexually active like within your situation, your relationship. I'm talking multiple partners. So same thing with a man, same situation. What do you think the label is on that?
So I don't agree. I mean, what I now that I realize few things and going through a couple things in life, I don't think that men should be engaging in a lot of sexual activity.
Okay.
But I think as a whole, generally speaking, men are more praised on the sexual activity rather than being the opposite of the word praise.
Right. Yeah. And I would tend to agree. And again, it's just like, right, clearly that's a double standard. And my thing is like, why? Which I don't have a good answer for, but I do have something that's, if nothing else, it's funny, and I gotta share it. And I don't know if some truth to it. When I heard it, it kind of made me think it's kind of silly, but I don't know. I just kind of want to see your reaction. So on this topic, right? If we'll use women as being the lock, and tell me if you heard this, and men as being the key, right?
Okay.
If you have a lock that has been opened by many keys, if you have a lock, right, that can be opened by many keys, that's deemed a bad lock. A lock should be opened by one key. That's the point of a lock, to protect something, and it has one point of access, right? If a lock can be opened by many keys, it is deemed a bad lock. Yes. Now, if you have one key that can open many locks, that's deemed as a really good key. Like, that is
Yeah.
a valuable key. Like, you would want that key if it can open many locks, right? And I was just like, I heard that, and I don't know where I heard that, but I was like, kind of childish, but like kind of interesting. And I've been trying to think if there's some validity to that. Like, again, you comparing that to a woman and a man, it's like, I can't say that's why men are praised, but as men, you're trying to get the access, again, in a sexual sense in this example. But so I guess because you're able to get so much access, whereas a woman, you're getting accessed, and that like degrades your value. I don't know. I just thought that was I think it's a conversation of value. Although I'm with you, I don't think I wouldn't promote a man to have a lot of sexual partners, right? Like, I don't have a son. If I did, I wouldn't encourage him to have a lot of sexual partners, even with this example I'm giving. But I'm just trying to understand why the narratives are the way they are. And I think it is, that's the best I've been able to come up with, that it's a conversation of value. Men are seemed, I think value is associated with being able to get up to a lot of women because, again, you're gaining access. And I think women are regarded as less valuable because a lot of people are getting access to you. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. And that's the best I could come up with. So again, a double standard, I, I, I disagree with, but like, that's what I understand the narrative to be.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like the reason behind it, I could totally get on board with that. And then on the
Yeah.
opinion as well on, men shouldn't be praised for having a lot of sexual partners, even though they kind of is.
They are. It is what it is. Like, I don't make the rules. Like,
Right.
it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But yeah, I had that one. I feel like I hear a lot, and so I kind of wanted to dissect that.
Do we go into the
Another,
non-gender stuff just to
yeah. Let's
talk about the other?
yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay. Okay. So I think the easiest one here is in politics. And politics is a big one. And obviously, coming
Yes.
from a year after a presidential election, like there was a
Right.
lot of talk between Republican and Democrat. And the double standard that I see is I know it goes both ways. And it's hard for me to believe. Okay, for example, if you're a Democrat, like the chances are they're like, I cannot believe like Donald Trump and the Republican Party, like they're doing this. I cannot believe it. Like they're doing shady, sketchy stuff. But at the same time, from a Republican side point of view, they're probably doing. I cannot believe Democrat. Like that's why
Yeah.
they didn't win the election because they do so much
Yeah.
sketchy stuff. The bottom
Right.
line being, both parties blame each other for being sketchy and doing not moral stuff, but that's just how government is. And that is a double standard that I cannot control, but it is the way it is. I don't agree. I wish politics was more truly to help society, but just not the way it works.
We all. I agree. I think there's a lot of finger pointing when the things they're pointing finger at exist within their own camps. And again, the question, like, why? Why is that? I mean, I have a guess at maybe why. Politics is largely persuasion, propaganda. You have to push an agenda, push in a viewpoint, right? So they're trying to, make the others look bad while disguising or making themselves look better. But again, to your point, if we're truly, like, if the goal is to truly further society, no matter what type of government we exist in, like for us, it's democracy, but whatever, if that's the goal, I think there will be a lot less of this double standard of, you bad, me good. And let's just, hey, like it's who's better. They're right. They're trying to push their views to further, like, why one party is better, but in doing so, it's definitely that double standard. I don't know. Do you have any other, like, reasons why you think that is, or any other notes on that?
No, I think you summarized it pretty well.
Yeah.
It is all pretty much persuasion on what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, I think so.
But it
Right.
is a classical definition of double standard. Like,
For
they
sure.
both do it, like, openly, and it's so easy to figure out in today's day and age. And kind of going into that, it might be crossing the line between rich and the poor, but definitely within the realm of politics, is insider trading, which is a big, big double standard. Like,
You said what?
the insider trading.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Like, God forbid someone in the company engages in insider trading. They're going to face some charges. Like, not so good stuff. But if Nancy Pelosi averages
yeah.
a 50% year average, and they're buying call options a week before something gets announced with a big government contract, and therefore the stock's gonna go shoot up and they make millions. Like, come on. Like, what? That is a crazy double standard. Like, the public cannot engage in it, but someone in power can. Like,
For sure.
that's crazy. And then, like, I learned this recently. So, you know how, like, if you're in Congress, or like if you meet certain wickets within a company and whatnot, you have to file your trades. Like, after a trade is made, I think they have like 30 days to make file a report saying what they did and whatnot.
So make it, I was just gonna say, there's an app where you can follow, like, Nancy Pelosi, right?
Yeah,
and, like, people like that. So yeah.
So they do that, but it's interesting because let's say they don't do that, right?
Yeah.
There is a fine associated for people in Congress for insider trading. Oh, good thing we have a fine, right? Do you know what the fine is?
It's something like stupid low, and I've heard it before.
It's a few $100. I want to say it's like $2 or something between
$1
and $500.
Yes. No, yeah.
So
yeah.
you
Actually,
said, you're like, okay, I'm going to engage in insider trading, guys. I make millions, and my punishment is few $100. Dude, I would take that trade every single time.
I would keep inside trading. Yeah.
There's no jail time. They're not getting fired from their jobs. The double standard is insane. The polar opposite. Yeah, it's that, like, I don't know how that's not a big political issue right now. Because Nancy Pelosi is the most notorious
because they don't want
one,
it to be.
because she's one of the greatest investors of all time while being in Congress. But, like, Democrats, Republicans, both sides, they do it.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think forcing them to make it be known? But like you said, they could just not. So, because I think that's trying to get at the heart of the problem, right? Like, hey, you guys have to publish your trades. And like I said, I forget the name of the app. I think I heard it too, where it's literally predicated on you follow trades of notable people. So you can, if you want to, you can, like, mimic their trades or whatever. But what if they don't publish your trade? Then it's like, then obviously you can't find it. I don't know. Do you think that's like a viable possible solution, or it's like a band-aid trying to like force them to make the trades public. Again, unless you make, I think I'm about to answer the question, but unless you make the penalty severe enough to stop them from doing it, I might be like not even worth it. I don't know.
Me personally, I don't
What do
want.
you think should be done?
I think you have to change something crazy and insane like this. I do think you need to make a drastic measure at first and easily taper off once that culture is established. So this sounds crazy, but with a plan, I think it could work. Like, I think they just need to ban trading
I was gonna
inside
say that. Do you
Congress.
think they should just stop? Yes. If
They
you're in
need
Congress,
so,
just you
and I
can't.
can see that being made multiple different ways. One of them is like restricting them to only buy sector ETFs or just ETFs in general. Like and at that point, like you're betting on a sector vice a random
Multiple.
stock that's about to
Yeah.
10x in a week, right? So I could see more of that. A second thing is if they buy something, they have to hold over a year. I could see that being
Ooh,
like, but
I
then
like
that's
that
kind of hard,
too.
like, because you might be trapping them into the situation, but then like that's the risk that you got to take with knowing
That's the
some
point. They
information,
make
right?
yeah,
But
exactly.
I don't personally, I don't think in like on top of the walls, the culture needs to shift as like a mindset because I could be Nancy Pelosi and you're my new, you're my, I don't know, like 23-year-old nephew, right?
Mhm.
Why can't I just tell you, hey, go buy this ticker, put this much, here's money, I'll loan it to you, go make it
Yeah,
happen. You take 1%, I'll keep the rest. Right? So it's gonna be hard to enforce on, like I said, until the culture
right.
and the mindset needs to shift. And one more funny things that I want to point out is, you were like, oh, like there's an app that follows politicians and Nancy Pelosi's trades. On top of the app, this is crazy to me. There's an ETF that follows Nancy Pelosi's trades exactly.
Really?
It's
I
not
didn't
even
know
like
that.
you go buy an ETF right now.
What's it called?
So
I gotta look that up.
look up the ticker NANC for Nancy.
What?
NANC. And the title of the ETF, the name of the ETF
Unusual.
is a unusual whale
eh,
uh subversive democratic trading
What?
ETF.
Literally. Interesting. How have I not heard about this?
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
this is like s-
Wow.
it's so out there.
It
There
is,
is a
yeah.
crime being committed in public that everyone gets to see, yet nothing is happening. I don't know what double standard could top that.
Super dope, yeah. That's like a dope. So you know how they say like nobody's above the law?
Yeah.
I think that this is reinforcing that some people are above the law, like
Yeah.
it, which is kind of the double standard. Yeah, man, dude, this is crazy. Unusual whales, subversive democratic trading. What?
Isn't that crazy?
Wild, wild. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Uh
Okay. Um, you said I want to hear what, or I don't know if you had a specific example, but we were kind of talking about I don't know if it's addressing the wealth gap or social economic
yeah.
gap or what.
Yeah. So the rich and the poor is we don't hear about it often, but it's definitely relevant, prevalent even in today's society. And then as soon as I start mentioning it, I feel like a lot of people will start connecting the dots. But one of the examples that I could see is, let's say you are engaged in, let's say you're engaged in assault, right? Like everyday people crime, then you get charged with assault. Like they're gonna face pretty harsh penalties depending on who that person is, how the circumstances play out. But you got to realize, like the rich, like let's say they are engaged in millions of dollars of tax evasion. Yeah, people go to jail for that, but those are the big cases. But a lot of times it's just like, hey, pay the IRS. Here's a little bit of interest on it. We're good to go. It's kind of like that. So in terms of the justice system, it does favor the rich in a lot of the ways. And it kind of stems from like going back to politics. Like a lot of these laws are passed in favor of the rich because they're the donors. Like you can't like the 2024 presidential election was one of the most expensive elections. And the Kamala Harris, like she made a big headline because she spent like a crazy amount. I think she spent like 1 point something billion dollars for her campaign. And even, Donald Trump's side too, like he still spent like $500 million or something like that. So it was a crazy amount of donations on both parties. And because of that, they're gonna pay back their donors by enforcing favorable laws to the rich. And that is a big double standard that we have in the justice system between the rich and the poor today. And another thing is, I'm going to lump the corporations into the rich category. It's not necessarily a person, but it's an entity. That's a rich entity. But think about 2008. That's a prime, crazy big example.
Oh my God. I know. Yes, dude.
So how is it that if me and you took out crazy amount of loans that we couldn't handle, our lives are destroyed? Bankruptcy, or if your morality doesn't let you declare bankruptcy because you promised to pay someone back, you're gonna take a financial hit in a big way for a long time. But okay, let's look at the corporations, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are, at least in 2008, they are masking these very risky loans and lumping them all together. And because it's diversified, because there's so many, you diversified a bunch of crap into one box and called it safe. That should be illegal. That should be they're criminals, right? They're going after people.
They were doing it.
Yeah. And they're giving out loans without verifying their good faith or an ability to pay back the loan. And like I think the Big Short movie highlighted it very well, the ninja loans, right? No income, no job loans. That should be illegal. Like they are like trapping people into this like bad financial system, and they ultimately get hurt. But let's look at Wall Street, right? Wasn't it like from 2008, like 3 people went to jail or something like that?
Dude, it was like but yes, it was. It was an extreme low amount for how widespread and economically devastating that scandal was. And it was like, you couple people do some time, and like it's like, what? That's it? Yeah.
And another thing, there was a lot of bank failures, right, during that time. And government's like, don't worry, banks. Like, you guys run the economy. We got your back. I wish if I were to, declare bankruptcy, which I don't plan to ever, the government's like, hey, you messed up. Here's $1 million. Pay off your loans. You got a little bit of money. You're good to go, buddy. I wish it was like that.
That's not how. Yeah.
But it's just not. I believe like they should have let the banks fail, and then it would have kind of, the big banks wouldn't have become bigger by absorbing these failing banks, and it kind of would have just gave more power, like equalized the power in the economy. But
great point. Now, so on that one specifically, it sounds great, but I don't. I guess I'm not educated enough to articulate. If that did play out and the big banks fail, I don't know what economic ripples that would have to know if we would be good enough to just let that play out. You know what I mean? Although I certainly think more people should have been held accountable. I just don't know what that looks like if
Yeah, no, you're right, and you got a really good point. Like, yeah, if
And that's why
everything
they
just
come in
played
like
out
nobody.
naturally, like maybe we could have been a much more of a disastrous place.
Yeah.
But I do think what they did was crossing the line,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like
Yeah.
you, like
No, it does.
just lower the rates to zero, inject some money into the economy, like you did COVID, and the good companies will come out of this fine, and the bad one's gonna phase out. You know, that's how
Yeah.
it needs to be.
Yeah.
But
And to your previous example, right? You said, if the average person, whatever, does, I don't know, you said assault or something, and then somebody far more wealthy gets caught for tax evasion. I don't know. Is that a double standard? Because you're not comparing the same crime. I feel like you need to compare the same crime to really see if it's a double standard. No, like if somebody in, I don't know, this tax bracket or whatever does tax evasion and commits tax evasion and gets multiple years in prison, and then somebody in multiple tax brackets higher does the same thing, and then it's like a slap on the wrist. To me, that depicts more of a double standard. I don't know if we can.
I would say it is a double standard because it's just how the law is written. The law could have been written to be more punishing or equally punishing in
I
terms
got
of
you.
like how much life is destroyed as an outcome of said stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, it's hard to quantify.
yeah, that is definitely hard to quantify, but then
I
that's
got you, I guess.
yeah, there it's just not the technicals of it, but just the idea of there are
Sure.
some crimes that the
Yeah,
poor
okay.
is more likely to commit. Now, I hate saying that,
Yeah,
but it is
yeah,
true.
yeah.
A
No.
rich person is not going to go
Yeah.
rob a house, right? A poor
Right.
person is much more likely to go rob a house.
Sure.
So now you got to
Yeah.
compare it to
Okay.
what are the you can't compare it robbing a house for a rich and a poor because one's not going to do it and one will do it. You got to compare it to something that they are likely to not likely because robbing a house is not
Interesting.
likely, but something that
I got you.
that part's subjective. Like how do you quantify
Yeah.
a crime equivalent to robbery or assault or whatever you want to compare it? That's
Right,
part
right.
subjective, but the idea overwhelming, like the overwhelming general narrative or the punishments around the crimes that's poor versus rich, like usually the rich is a slap on the wrist, where on the poor is jail time, big fines, a lot of like stuff that like you get that on your job like criminal record, like you might not be able to get a job. If you're rich, bro, you're good. You don't like depending on how rich, like you don't need to go get a job. Your life's gonna be fine. You know what I mean?
I've never. Yeah, that's interesting, and I don't think I have a strong opinion on that yet, because I do think at a certain point, different crimes deserve different punishments. But like you said, it's like weighted on. I think you phrased it like how it affects a life or life, which that certainly could be a aspect or a point of determination of what happens. That's good though. I
But
see your
even
overall idea of
but even if on let's say I'm gonna try to make it equal across the board,
I'm
right?
trying to think of an example too. Yeah.
Let's say you commit a crime where the penalty is $100,000 fine. Let's just say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who's if you have $1 billion, $100,000 is gonna be a slap to the wrist.
I
Not
mean,
even a
sure, but
slap. It might be like a you breathe on their pinky nail, right? But then if someone that's living paycheck to paycheck, they get hit with $100,000 fine, like you're done.
yeah.
So how is it like? Is it fair that
Okay.
would it be a double standard that just by having more money, the crime punishment is less severe on the proportionality wise to you?
Wait, ask that again.
Like, is it fair that the crime, like a financial, like a punishment in this case, is more than what you earn
Yeah, you're cutting up.
versus like being like a very small portion of your net worth? Right? They're the same amount, but in terms of the effects that you have,
Right.
like the rich is like, I don't here's your 100K, I don't really care. Where the poor is like, dude, my life is destroyed.
Yeah.
Same
Again, I
exact crime,
don't.
same exact punishment. It does favor the rich for other reasons, but it is the way it is. And the more, this is a super particular example, so I don't want to keep like the idea is like more generalized, but
Sure.
like wouldn't it be like a percentage of your income or a percentage of your net worth make more sense than like a flat amount that could be very not subjective, but like in term, it's $100,000 is objective, but it's subjective on how the person feels if they get $100,000 taken away.
I know you're not trying to harp on this, but I'm just thinking like if it's a flat rate, like it might incentivize you to not do that crime more. Like if the punishment was, hey, if you do this crime, I'm gonna take 20% of your income, net worth, whatever, right? It's like, okay. Now, if the fine is $100,000, which is what you used, if my net worth is or income is at the point where the $100,000 is more than 20% of it, then I'm gonna be more incentivized to not do the crime. And then if my net worth or income is above the point where $100,000 is more than 20%, depending on the crime, I may, again, this is hard to quantify. Depending on what the crime is, I may not even be trying to do that crime anyways. So it's like, I kind of think it should just be if I don't see, I guess, regardless of what I think it is or not, I don't think that's a double standard. I think it's the opposite. I think it's one standard. Like this, if you do, I guess a percentage would be one standard too. I don't know. I guess I just don't see the double standard in it. It may favor the poor, or excuse me, the rich, just because you have more money. But I don't. Then it's a difference of if the law was written that way, or if it just happens to be like you have more money, therefore it hurts you less. I don't know.
No, it is written that way for
Yeah,
a reason. I mean,
yeah.
'cause
For
like I
certain
said, we're
stuff,
getting
I think
super
certainly.
hyper fixated on this one
Yeah,
example, which is not
right,
the point that I was trying to make. But even if we stick to it, then by what you said would imply that it's okay for the rich to commit crimes because since it's a flat rate that doesn't really affect their net worth, just keep committing the crimes.
Good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. So maybe there should be double standard. I don't know. That's good. I have no comment on that. I guess really, yeah. I really thought. I think I don't think I've thought about that particularly, but that's good. So are you? And this just for me to understand. Are you? Like, what are your personal thoughts on that? Do you like what change would you want to see, or
I mean,
what
this
would you
gets
want to see? What do
super
you think there's
high
something that should be
level,
taken into
but
consideration?
the law shouldn't favor anyone. But the way that
Yeah,
our politics works, it does favor the rich because they provide the money. And that's just what it comes down to it.
that's just
And
fun. But yeah.
I don't know how we could make it better. I mean, I have some thoughts on
Sure.
very particular ideas.
Yeah, but we don't got to.
But
Yeah, I got you.
like overall, like a systematic change, I really don't have a better way, to be honest. Like this might be the best that we got, you know? So I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for you, but
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Um, no, I think I better understand what you're saying with the standard of it favoring the wealthy because the wealthy provides. Like I think I understand a little bit better. Okay.
yeah, I think I mean, okay, we'll make I'll bring up one more just more on the rich versus poor that we can like a societal double standard because I think that's what you're trying to get at. It's like, hey, you don't see it as a societal double standard,
Yeah.
right? Like how others view it as a double standard, right? But I got a good example for you for the rich and poor that society views it as double standard,
Okay.
which is like I think parenting that kind of came up into my mind, where if I don't know, let's say not so well off single mother is working 3 jobs to provide for their kids, right? It's like, oh, like that's so noble. They're so hardworking. Blah 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 blah. Like they're all
Yeah.
roses. But if a very rich CEO goes off and neglects their kids, because I mean, it is you aren't ultimately neglecting them, right? Regardless of you whether you like to call it that. By working 3 jobs for the single mother, you are neglecting your kids. Even though the money is to support the kids, you are not there present for them to
Yes.
help them out with homework or whatever. But if a rich CEO does that, it's like, oh, they are prioritizing their career over their kids, and it's just like, oh, they need to care about their kids more over the company. Like, there is a negative connotation that comes along with that.
Interesting. I like that. Well, I mean, I don't like kids being neglected, but I like that example.
So that is a more of like a societal double standard, definitely, that we see between the rich and the poor. And there's a lot of stuff like that, right? Like, God
Right.
forbid a poor person goes on vacation. They're like, oh, they're being so irresponsible with their money. And that could be true, right? But then the rich goes on the same exact vacation. They're like, oh, they deserve it. They have the money. Like, I don't know. Doesn't really make sense to me,
That's good. And is there any afterthought? Or you like, do you think both should go on vacation without judgment, or both should not neglect their kids? Or I think those are phenomenal examples, though.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like I said, no one should be neglecting their kids, right?
Right.
But it just kind of they shouldn't be, but it's kind of their choice at the end of the day. And then maybe the poor person has less choices, and that's why they're forced to work 2 jobs and maybe even 3 jobs. But at the same time, like, even for the rich, like, yeah, they don't want you to neglect your kids, but they might be they might be passionate about their company that has positive effects on the company, the employees. Maybe they're able to make a societal impact by donations because they make more money. Like, there's definitely a lot of pros and cons that you as a person or me as a person cannot say, hey, that's right or wrong. Like, because I mean, for example, like, we look on the surface and say, yeah, like, neglecting kids is bad. But what if by neglecting your kid, they solved world hunger, for example?
Yeah.
Now, like, we're in a tough situation because, like, oh, like your kid should be super important, but in a utilitarian standpoint, which I like to think in a lot of ways, like, I'm sorry, that kid's gonna be a sacrifice. I'm sorry
F them kids
to solve world hunger. Like, you know what I mean? So that is a hard one. That is subjective, but then there is a lot of double standard in terms of narrative.
Yes.
Between the rich and the poor.
Yes. Dang, I just recently saw the Fantastic Four movie, and the new one, and it for anybody that's seen it, there's a very almost exact trade-off for like kid versus the world. Pick one thing. I don't want to spoil, but it would highlight that point very well if I were to spoil it. No, that's a great example, because in both situations, somebody that's struggling, working multiple jobs to provide their kid, they're working to provide for their kid. The CEO who's maybe wealthy and needs to work a lot of hours to stay at his position at that company so he can provide this lifestyle for his kid is also working for their kid.
Yeah.
They're just polarizing positions. So, but they're both like the same motive. So that's why I really love that one. Complete double standard, but kind of the same motive. That's good. Yeah. I mean, it's like not on us to judge. Something to think about. Okay. On staying in the realm of kind of bringing it back to the household, this kind of could go into parenting more so back to the woman versus man. What's it called? Double standard, right? Is physical abuse, and this is probably the last one I'll submit to the conversation. I think is objectively a bad thing, right? But when you have, let's say, a man hits a woman, it's obviously bad. But there's phrases that exist like a man should never lay his hands on a woman, which I agree with. But what you don't hear is a woman should never lay their hands on a man. because if that phrase did exist, or if it was common, I would also agree with that. But women are noted to hit man, or even if it's playful, we'll like hit him, but it never holds the same amount of weight as when a man puts his hand on a woman. Which, again, I want to be clear, I'm not advocating for either, but I've noticed that they're not equal.
Yeah.
And again, my question is, why aren't they equal? And if I had to guess, it would go back to some sense of like, back, I guess, to the traditional, like, man is associated with the dominant maybe force or the power. So it's like, maybe because they're the powerful figure, they should be able to just absorb that, or, it shouldn't, it doesn't matter more for as much if a man is being abused by a woman for whatever reason. But it's a double standard that exists, and
Yeah,
it's like,
that is a double standard, and I see where
like,
they're coming from. Like,
why?
as humans, we like to protect those that are weaker, and then like it should
I
be
guess.
a societal rule that's ingrained in your DNA that, like, hey, if you're stronger, you should be protecting those weaker than you. And I'm talking, that's figuratively and also literally. And in this case, it's literal. Like, men
Oh,
are
yeah.
just stronger and bigger than women. So therefore, like, they should be protecting the women, but now you're trying to inflict harm. Like, it's just does. And then obviously, because we humans like to protect the weak, like, we would favor with the female in this case.
I agree. That is probably the logic, and I just think it needs to change.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
like
is
I
not
said,
going
I
to change
agree
overnight.
with you.
It's a
Like,
cultural, yeah.
it should.
Yeah.
No one should be hitting anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang, why can't we all get along? Facts. That was the last one I just wanted to throw out there. I think we covered a pretty good variety.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
No, I think it was good. It was more fun conversation.
A lot of double standards on maybe why they shouldn't exist or why we think they do exist. And just some info to chew on. I actually got a lot of good takeaways on this from this talk with you. If nothing, like, from the standpoint of like, man, some topics I want to put more thought to. So I appreciate you, bro. It's
Appreciate you
good
as
stuff.
well.
And with that, we'll catch y'all next week with a fresh new topic. Thanks.